Let's see if I still know how to do this. Hey, how you going? Thanks for tuning in. This is the Null Electronics Podcast. My name is Hayden Quinn, and I'm really pleased that those of you who have tuned back in after such a long break have tuned back in after such a long break. It means a lot to me. I'm going to try and do more dispatches via podcast over the coming weeks and months, hopefully just to build a little bit more momentum and steam. So look forward to that. I have no guest this week, as I didn't last time, but I hope to have some guests in the future. There's one such guest that I did think that I was going to have on this podcast, and I'll be honest, a big part of the reason I kicked this podcast off proper to begin with was the carrot that was dangled in front of my face several months ago, was that I would have a very, very big in terms of, famous, I guess, or well-known, well-deserved in notoriety, guest on the podcast. And so if I was going to have someone that big on the podcast, I better get a fucking podcast invented, quick smart, because I lied to their publicist and said, yeah, you should come on the podcast, and, I'll clip bits of it, and maybe the clips from the podcast will go viral, and that'll be good promotion for your artist. Anyway, who am I talking about? I'll tell you in a moment. So I quickly went about, creating a podcast page through Spotify's podcast thingo, and I scrambled. Someone forwarded me an email that they received saying, Regurgitator are coming to town and we need someone to interview them for our publication, to which I sneakily put my hand up and said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I'll write an article for the local Canberra Street Press, with only half an intention of doing so. So I interviewed the guy from Regurgitator. His name's Quan. It was a good episode. It was a good chat. I really like that band, so I had a lot to talk to him about. All under the guise that this was going to be for a written interview for our local Canberran street press, which would drum up attention, business, and hype for the upcoming Regurgitator show in Canberra. I sneakily did it via video call, and I sneakily recorded the whole thing, and then at the end I hit the guy with the question, hey, can I turn this into a podcast? Would that be alright with you? To which he responded, yes. So I was very lucky there, and then that was how it got going. And I established a podcast, which was a good thing, because now I was no longer lying to this publicist over in the UK who has a very big client who allegedly or apparently was very interested in coming on my podcast that I didn't have until several minutes prior to sending that email. So it was good. Not only did I have a podcast, but I had a podcast with a well-known musician on it. And some of the clips from that podcast are, disseminated out into the world through TikTok and Instagram. So I had a proven track record. Not only could I interview a person, but I could also clip the video of them saying something interesting, and it resonated with human beings out there on the internet. Now, what else could you ask for? What's the point in going on a podcast if you're not going to get clipped and go, not viral, but get eyeballs on your product? Anyway, I kept going because it was going to be months between contacting this publicist and actually doing the podcast. He said, maybe in July or maybe in June, I think it was, we'll reach out and we'll sync it all up then. To which I said, fantastic, no worries, that's months away. I'll keep the momentum going. I'll put my pedal to the metal. And so then I had, I think it was Shane from DZ Death Rays on the podcast. I don't even remember how that came about. But I think I just reached out to him cold and said, hey, let's do it. And he said, yep. I was like, well, this podcasting thing's pretty fucking easy. Maybe there's something going on here. So I had a good chat with Shane, and that was great. Off the back of talking to the guy from Regurgitator, Quan, their producer for the albums that we spoke about, Magoo, reached out to offer some corrections and give me some information about the recording of the Regurgitator albums. And I was like, Magoo, thanks for sliding into the DMs. I appreciate getting this extra knowledge on these records I used to listen to as a teenager, but fuck, mate, save it for the pod. Come on my podcast. And he was like, yeah, no worries. We're 3 weeks deep, or maybe 3 fortnights deep at this stage. I got guests coming out my ass. It's all going fantastically. And surely this publicist in the UK, when I turn around to him and say, mate, it's been going great. We've had some clips go pretty well. The podcast is steaming a roll. Steaming a roll? I wouldn't mind a steamed roll. Steaming along. Let's go. Let's get this guy onto the podcast. It's going to be huge. Anyway, I started to realize about 2 weeks after interviewing Magoo for the podcast that I didn't have someone lined up for the next week. So I frantically sent emails to all kinds of people. I sent emails to the Presets. I thought that would have been a good chat. They didn't respond. Oh no, I think their publicist came back with some namby-pamby. They're not doing press at the moment. It's like, bro, this isn't press. This is a 50-listener podcast. You're talking about press. Shut up. So that didn't happen. I can't remember who else I reached out to. I reached out to some smaller acts. Not in size. I presume they're all adult-sized, but, you know, smaller in terms of popularity. And Radio Silence. I did reach out to and have a lovely back and forth with one of the guys from classic Australian electronic act Sonic Animation, who I was a big fan of in my teenage years and pre-teen years. And we just couldn't make that work, sadly. He just wasn't up to it, but we did have a lovely back and forth, and maybe in the future he will be able to come on the podcast. We'll see about that in the future. But it all fell apart. And you know what I said? I said, oh, who cares? Easy come, easy go. At least I can still make fun videos, and I ain't going to spend any more time reaching out to people, because it isn't really my main focus. But a podcast is a podcast, and I don't know, I guess there's a way to make money out of podcasts more than there is out of the other shit that I do, so I should keep doing it. Anyway, fast forward to June, and I'm just going to have a sip of my coffee, excuse me. Leave you on tenterhooks. Fast forward to June. Email goes out from me to old mate at publicist over in the UK. I said, hey mate, just following up. You know, you said it'd be a few months. I know the band that you represent has been very busy, and it seems like they've got a little bit of a break at the moment before they head over to Australia to play some shows. Why don't we pop this podcast in the can, get it done and dusted, and that'll help promote the show a little, maybe sell some tickies, you know what I'm saying? To which he said, yes, great, sounds good. Let me just find a time. And then, you know, a couple of weeks later, okay, good, yep, okay, no worries. How does Friday sound? To which I said, yeah, good, awesome, I'll make myself available. To which he said, okay, cool. How's this time on Friday sound? To which I said, yes, fantastic, let's do it. And then 2 days passed, and then he emailed me on the day, as I was expecting, because I hadn't heard from him, and he said, guess what? Peter Hook is unable to come on your podcast. We've had to prioritize actual radio stations and actual people with actual platforms. To which I said, who cares? No worries. You're still getting me into the show for free, right? To which he said, yes. And so that is the story of how Peter Hook, from renowned bands such as Monaco, you may have heard of them, New Order, you may have heard of them, and Joy Division, you may have heard of them, did not come on my podcast. Anyway, I guess it's just kind of funny that the whole reason I set the podcast up for this guest never actually came to fruition. He didn't come on the podcast. But I guess that's what I get for lying to a publicist that I had a podcast. Oh well, easy come, easy go. It would have been a really fun chat though. I really wanted to talk to Peter specifically about this record that he's touring at the moment, which is the Get Ready record from New Order. It came out in 2001. He's currently doing a 25-year anniversary tour, playing the whole record in full, and then playing a second set afterwards of, you know, deep cuts from the back catalogue of Monaco, New Order, and Joy Division. But I wanted to talk to him about how anomalous this record is. It's certainly not in keeping with the typical sound that made New Order so famous or so well known. It's got all these interesting millennial sort of touchstones and sounds in it, and I thought it would have been a really interesting chat, but that's okay. Peter and Ian, his publicist, feel free to reach out to me if he gets bored and wants to have an hour-long chat about that. And also Republic, the record from 1993. I think another thing that I really would have liked to talk to Peter about is I made a video on my TikTok and Instagram about that very record. And it was sort of serendipitous that I made that video maybe about 6 months or so ago, because he had just started touring this 25th anniversary tour in support of that album, and I had no idea he was doing this. And so it sort of seemed serendipitous that I put this video out, and it got a little bit of attention, most notably by him. It caught his attention, and he was talking to me on Instagram and saying things like, he said something along the lines of, "This was a funny video, really enjoyed it. You got a few things wrong. You got most of it right. But I really wanted to sit down with him and say, mate, let's do the fact check. Tell me, let's go through what I did and didn't get right and sort of iron it out." Because, there are a few big guesses and sort of like, there's speculation in that video. Would have been funny to hear it, hear what actually happened straight from the horse's mouth. When you think of New Order, you probably think of this. And if you've got slightly better taste, you might think of this. And if you're a real head, you think about how sick the vibe is on this one. I often think about how the Chemical Brothers used to pay a short homage to Temptation in their live sets before they'd play Star Guitar. But if I'm honest, the place my mind goes to first and foremost is their 2001 comeback album, Get Ready. We're like crystal. But to talk about this underrated, hyper-overproduced, new millennium sheen, most maximalist record in their catalogue, it's important to set the scene first. So let's go back to 1993 when the band released what looked like it could be their last ever album, Republic.
That's the price of love. Can you feel it? If we could buy it now, how long will it last?
Honestly, this record goes too. But Republic was written and recorded under duress. At this point in their career, bassist Peter Hook, whose unique voice in the band is a huge part of their appeal to me, and Bernard Sumner, who is a terrible lyricist and oftentimes annoyingly pitchy in his delivery, pretty much hated each other. Couple that dynamic with the fact that the infamous nightclub the band co-owned with their record label, the Hacienda, was hemorrhaging money and threatened to monumentally ruin all stakeholders in the institution financially, and you have a band that were ostensibly forced to make another fucking record, make it quick, and make some goddamn money off it now. The band succeeded, in that they made a record, released it, and didn't end up in financial ruin as a result. But Factory Records, their record label, folded before they could release it, and the Hacienda, of course, closed down. But I suppose that's what happens when you go into business with Alan Partridge.
How much was it? It's not the materials, okay? It's that's the design. You're paying for design.
I didn't ask about the material.
It's brilliant.
How much it was?
It's 30 grand.
30 grand.
The point is, if you go to any London record company...
30 grand for a fucking table, you cunt!
So with all that stress going on, the band unofficially broke up. That is, they played the last show of their Republic tour at Reading Festival in 1993, walked off stage, and then didn't talk to each other for about 5 years. So in this break, we get the release of Bizarre Love Triangle 2, aka Tasty Fish, by the aptly named The Other Two, i.e. not Peter Hook or Bernard Sumner, but Gillian Gilbert and Stephen Morris.
No matter what you say, no matter what I do, it all comes back to you.
And then in 1997, you get what I believe lays the groundwork for the album I actually wanted to talk about today, Get Ready. It begins, to my ear, with Peter Hook's side project, Monaco, and their album Music for Pleasure, the lead single from which absolutely fucking rocks. This song is often mistaken for a New Order song, and I think that says a lot about how intrinsic the unique songwriting and bass playing of Peter Hook is to the sonic identity of New Order. You can also say the same for that annoying The Other Two record, I suppose. And yes, it does also help that David Potts, the other guy in Monaco, sounds a lot like Bernard Sumner. Hell, he's even pitchy in the same way. But I also think that some of what Peter Hook and David Potts are doing on this record feeds directly into the modern, hyper-produced and singular moment that is the reunion album, Get Ready. I feel like Peter Hook is throwing his weight around a lot on Get Ready, and I think the advancement of music technology between 1993's Republic and 2001's Get Ready put the band in a really interesting new landscape, which worked for them. First, you have this ethereal, heavy-hitting pop epic, Crystal, which has Peter Hook again at front and centre. Gillian appears to have bought a new synth for the first time in 10 years, and as a result the album is covered with beautiful new millennium synth strings, replacing her usual jagged, dry, stabby synth sounds. The guitars are huge, on some My Bloody Valentine shit. Dense, chunky, low-mid, bombastic guitar chords just clogging shit up. The thin, new wave guitars of their previous albums are gone. Then you get Peter Hook throwing his weight around again. The fucking bass guitarist writes the biggest hook on this album. "60 Miles an Hour" lives in the zeitgeist of 2001 music production. Shit slaps. Again, you've never heard this kind of electronic work on a New Order record until now. And it probably did take a lot of getting used to for the old heads, but I was 12 when this record came out, so I didn't fucking care. I just loved this cool new band I'd discovered called New Order. And due to the music video, which featured a bunch of young actors pretending to be New Order, I had no idea that the band I was listening to was a bunch of over-the-hill old losers. Excellent marketing from the absolute bastards over at London Recordings. Incidentally, when I was a young teen and The Killers released this music video,
Somebody told me you had a boyfriend who looked like a girl.
I remember being like, wait a fucking minute, this is just a rip-off of the Crystal music video, but with a smaller budget. And not only that, they've even ripped off the name of the fictional band in the Crystal music video. The Killers? Anyway, I just remembered this now, and I googled it, and yeah, it turns out that that is literally where The Killers got their band name from. So, that should validate just about every tenuous connection I've ever attempted to make without any sound evidence to back up in all of my videos to date. So just trust me, I have great intuition. But I really do have a soft spot for high production value recordings from this particular period of time. And whilst some of the songs on this record are kinda duds, the sonic quality and the production across Get Ready more than makes up for it. I can happily let this album play through purely based on the polish on this thing. I can still enjoy even the lazier songs with, again, terrible lyrics.
The afternoon was very clear. The sun was beating down on me. I got thirst before I beer. that I had to go to sea. The sea was very rough, it made me feel sick, but I like that kind of stuff. It beats arithmetic.
But lyrics aside, Slow Jam is a monster of production and a goddamn anthem. Just listen to those fucking drums, they're massive. Bobby Gillespie and Andrew Innes from Primal Scream make another dumb, bombastic song on the album. Absolutely go off.
Rock the shack, rock the shack, rock the shack, rock the shack.
Man, some of the flourishes on this track, this weird feedback thing,
I took East River with King.
and the looping woo in the background here.
Get right, get right, get right, get right.
And those guitars are just... everything on this album is big. It's deserving of a big John Bosch. Someone Like You sounds like $1 million. This is just such a fucking treat on the ears. The strings, the female vocals, Hooky on his bullshit again. Not 8 bars passes in this song without some new ear candy fluttering in and giving you something to consider. For a maximalist like me, it's just fucking perfect.
Someone like you. Someone like you. Yeah. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
And you also have this really boring song which features Billy Corgan on it. Get Ready has one describing New Order in ways they had never been described before. Loud, bombastic, maximal, and completely untastefully overproduced to excess, as is the way things should have been in the new millennium. You can take your Blue Monday. I'ma be here smashing Rock the Shack, a true anthem for real bastards like me. But anyway, life goes on, and so does the podcast. Another thing that happened in music locally in Australia over the maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago is there's been a bit of controversy around a producer slash DJ who goes by the name of Josh Fawaz. He makes very, very boring sort of deep tech slash pop slash house remixes of well-known songs. And he's been getting a lot of traction with them. He seems to be very popular on social platforms, and his songs on streaming sites have millions of listens and plays. Now, the controversy comes from this guy releasing a cover of Madonna's Like a Prayer, and it is very, very clearly, maybe not clear to everyone, but people that have used these AI music generating tools, it sounds exactly like it was generated entirely by one of those. There are a lot of really, really obvious sort of telltale signs that sort of implant themselves on AI generated music from these tools. And as someone who has had fun fucking around with them, absolutely I clocked it as soon as I was hearing his song. But there were, that it wasn't just that, actually. To be fully honest, the way that I came across this controversy was that I saw some other video on TikTok of someone accusing him of doing this, of releasing songs and falsely claiming that he'd produced them when actually all he'd done is prompted an AI to generate them. But yes, it very, very clear that that's what was going on. This song, the Like a Prayer remix or cover or whatever you want to call it, was the most played song on Australian radio. The number one song on Australian radio a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if it still is. It was getting right up there on the ARIA charts as well, I think. Just a very, very popular song. And so the music industry and music lovers writ large came out of the woodwork to say, this is fucking shit. I made a little video about it. I'll play it for you now. The number one song on Australian radio at the moment is an AI cover of Madonna's Like a Prayer. It's total garbage, and it sounds like this.
When you call my name, it's like a little prayer. wanna take you.
That song is by, well, Madonna, and Suno, but there is a less important third-party mediator involved who goes by the name of Josh Fawaz. That's the guy who managed to work his way around Suno's copyright protection restrictions, upload the original Like a Prayer into it, and then prompt the AI model with something like, make this way worse. And the result is this. But maybe that's not giving the guy enough credit. He also films himself dancing to the resulting output, both in his study,
Because baby, you're gonna be the one that saves me.
and sometimes in his car.
Because baby, you're gonna be the one that saves me.
Anyway, music producers and lovers Australia-wide are incensed by this, that the song is on such high rotation on commercial radio stations the country over and is getting millions of streams on platforms the world over. Myself, I'm not too bothered because I hold the fairly cynical view that if we swapped out Josh Fawaz for Nina Geraci on Nova, not only would we not see a spike of interest in Nina Geraci, but you would see a dip in people listening to Nova. Nova isn't for people who are deeply into music, it's for people who need to be told what to buy next to silence the uncomfortable voices in their heads. I use beer for that, hard to say which is less healthy. But this whole thing, which I don't actually care about, has got me thinking, what is an acceptable use of these AI music generating tools, which as the months go by are suffering more and more from the diminishing returns principle? It doesn't take long using these tools to be able to identify the weird, almost frequency modulated scratchy calling cards of an AI generated piece of audio. I'll tell you what's an acceptable use of AI music generation tools. This song I made about how my parents wouldn't let me have Nutri-Grain when I was a kid because of the sugar content.
Nutri-Grain, it's a no food. Mommy says it's bad and daddy says it's rude. Nutri-Grain, make me feel so good. Put it in my mouth like a good boy should. Nutri-Grain.
Also acceptable is this response song that I made to that Homer dropped his donut song.
Bart did some graffiti. Hey, caramba. Bart said, eat my shorts. Bart don't have a cow, man. Hey, caramba. Bart is such a cool dude.
And why not use AI for a politically charged Russian folk pop plea to Albanese to make fuel more expensive but beer cheaper?
Make beer cheap and fuel more expensive. It's not that hard, bro, that's the message.
And possibly most importantly, it is definitely okay to use AI music tools for feeding this demo that I made, an attempted recreation of a new Red Hot Chili Peppers song that I helped the boys write in a dream I had a few years ago.
Let's go to boom, baby, and PJ. Everybody wanna boom to PJ.
So that the model can make a fully realized funk fusion slap happy version for me to revisit that lovely moment in the studio with the lads in real life.
Let's go to boom, baby, and PJ. Everybody wanna bow the feet, babe. Put the gold in my pizza, pop, 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 hop, 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 a PJ.
And that concludes all of the allowed use cases for now. Maybe the technology will get better in the future and I'll change my mind. If so, I will let you know.
Rattle and ride. Unrip the tie and I fly with pride. I gotta shake, rattle and roll.
So yeah, that's what happened there. I don't feel particularly passionate about this topic, and so I don't really know what more I can say on it, other than, again, like, the kind of people that listen to this music are not, you know, maybe this is a perfectly fine use of AI music generation tools. I get the complaint that it's mining previous people's work and sort of amalgamating it and spitting out a new iteration, and the whole, all of the models are built on the hard work of other artists, a lot of whom have not, you know, opted in to have their work mined. I get all of those arguments, of course, but sort of in the short term, if this is what's being spat out by these Suno models or Udio models, who gives a shit? Like, it's crap. It's not. There's nothing interesting or enjoyable about this music to the type of person that is truly into quote unquote music or interested in music and culture in that way. And for the people that aren't into it, let them have their stupid Suno AI remix to, I don't know, get them through their shitty job that they don't want to be at. Maybe I'm simplifying it here, but I also just don't quite see... I don't know. Who knows? I could very easily be proven wrong because AI models are constantly seemingly getting better and better, but it feels like they haven't been getting very better. That's a right turn of phrase in the last couple of months, right? Like, I feel like they're hitting this ceiling, and I'd be surprised if someone who's purely using very simple, type a prompt or push a demo into an AI model and have it spit out a full song and then release that song. I'd find it. I don't know that I don't see a world where that kind of music is really dominating the interesting arts, music, culture space. But what do I know? I could be wrong. Point is, this Josh Fawaz guy's an idiot. I think that's the main takeaway. No, he's not. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. I'd love to have a beer with you, Josh. Reach out. Actually, come on the pod. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a good idea. I'm going to hit his DMs. Please bear with me. I'm just grabbing my phone. Actually, I wonder if I can record a podcast and send a voice note to Josh Fawaz at the same time. Just pulling up Instagram. JOSH FAWO. There he is. Josh Fawaz. Message. Okay, here we go. Doing this live on the pod. Hey Josh, my name's Hayden. I make content on the internet about music. I was really interested in all of this stuff that's been circulating you around your Like a Prayer song, which has seemed to have gone gangbusters lately, and all of the controversy around the use of Suno AI models to create it and other songs. It seems as though you're not particularly bothered. Maybe that's not right. Maybe you don't seem too concerned about using those models to release the music. And I'd really, really love to have you on my podcast to hear your side of it and hear your opinion on all of this stuff as someone who's seemingly making a living, maybe not making a living, but someone who's releasing music, using AI tools to do so, and getting a lot of pushback for it. I'd really love to have a decent conversation on my podcast and hear you out about, what your thoughts are on this pushback and what your plans are pushing forward with your music career. I hope you get this. I hope you have time to listen to it and reach out to me. Thanks, Josh. Bye. Oh, by the way, my name's Hayden. Bye. What kind of a freak sends a 1 minute 15 voice message cold to an Instagram account and expects them to listen to it? Not only listen to it, but respond. Me, that's what kind of a freak. Anyway, just touching a little bit more on the topic of AI music tools. A duo that I think are out of the States, I might have that wrong, they're called Two Shell. They've done some great stuff in their history as electronic music producers. One of my favorite tracks by them is Home. It's one of the best dance music tracks in my mind that's come out in a long time. I'm just going to play a little bit of that now for you to hear the kind of music these guys make. Yeah, fucking sick stuff. Anyway, they're a pretty divisive duo. A lot of people have had issues with them for a lot of reasons. I'm actually not clear on why they get a fair bit of hate. Maybe they seem a little bit like they're kind of edgelords a little bit in the way they promote their music. I haven't actually seen any of that firsthand. I'm just familiar with one. I quite like some of their music. I really love some of their music, and I'm ambivalent on some of their music, but I really love some of it. And two, that they for some reason have like a bit of a strange community of people that don't seem to like them for whatever reason. I don't know what that reason is, but it certainly wasn't helped in the last couple of weeks when they were interviewed. I think it was by Resident Advisor. I might have that wrong, but they were interviewed on Resident Advisor's social channels, YouTube, something like this, and they talked about how they openly talked about how they are using AI tools to help produce their music, whether that means, well, they didn't go into too much depth, but it sounded like they're using it in a very different way to Josh Fawaz, in that they're, prompting to get some strange noises generated, which they'll then pull out of Suno and then bring into their DAW and mix into the songs, or chord progression ideas, or taking a chord progression that already exists and making it more, I don't know, different.
We've been using the technology for quite a few years now, and I mean it's interesting because on one hand it's a fascinating conversation, and then on another it's extremely boring, because essentially, I mean, from some perspectives, it's just another tool coming through, and we're and we use it as part of every other process of making music. It's just another instrument, really. It does bring some wild things with it, some wild questions around things like identity and ownership, but it also brings, I mean, there's an irony with it where I think sometimes it feels like the emptiness of it almost helps you identify the soul in it. And I think that's where we found it really incredible, a bit like, not too dissimilar from electronic music and music made on computers. And I just see it like another extension from that. And I think if someone was to, I think it'd be pretty wacky now if someone came up to you and said, you made that piece of music on a computer, there were people, I've heard that there were people in the, I don't know, maybe it's the 60s or 70s, there was a musicians union kind of thing against synthesizers. Now this is obviously different, and there are lots of problems, but I think for us it's just it's interesting because it makes us connect with what feels amazing in music even more.
They got a lot of hate for that, and I'm honestly, look, the only argument that I sort of think holds any water against doing stuff like that, because I think it is really interesting, the kind of shit that gets spewed out when you fuck around with, feeding an AI model a chord progression, or even just like a tiny short little 8-bar guitar line that you fiddled around with on your guitar, and then just, seeing the wild stuff that can get vomited out of Suno as a result of that, and then bringing that in as a piece of media to then springboard off of and then write a song around, or it's a kind of a unique, exciting production experience, unlike which we've had before, and the feeling of it reminds me of the excitement that I got when I first sort of discovered how to synthesize sounds on a synthesizer, or discovered how to chop beats up on a sampler. But back to my main point, the only argument that holds water in my mind against using AI tool to generate such ideas, or to sort of like remix or synthesize ideas that you've come up with and then pull them back into your usual process, is this one that those ideas are generated off the back of a lot of previously recorded music, a lot of which has not been given the go-ahead to be used, to be re-synthesized in your music. That's the only real thing. I mean, there's also the nefarious nature of these tech companies and all of this other stuff, but there are billions of nefarious companies that I'm putting money into day in, day out, so I wouldn't have much of a leg to stand on to draw the line at Suno. Anyway, food for thought. I don't hate you, Tushell, for using tools. And again, it's going to come out sounding like garbage if you were just to use these tools in such a Luddite way. Anyway, moving on. There's one other thing that I wanted to touch on before I finish up the podcast for this week or fortnight or whatever it'll be, and that is a video I made about Molly Meldrum, which I thought was a pretty harmless video about a funny moment where Molly Meldrum interviewed the Red Hot Chili Peppers on their Stadium Arcadium press tour. I'll play the video now for you rather than go into what it's about. Let me do that now. Hey, do you ever think about when brain-dead and drug-fucked Australian music media personality Molly Meldrum opened up his interview with the Red Hot Chili Peppers by letting Anthony and the boys know that his good friend Michael Gudinski had heard the tracks from their latest album, Stadium Arcadium?
A good friend of mine, Michael Gudinski, had just been in America, had heard the tracks.
Look, you can say what you want about Anthony Kiedis, but the man is responsible for one of the funniest TV interview moments I can think of, when he reacted like this to the scintillating news that Gudinski had heard the tracks.
Said it is the
Gudinski
album
heard
of
the tracks?
year. Gudinski. Yeah, Gudinski. So he said...
Did you know Gudinski heard the tracks?
I didn't know about Gudinski hearing
No
the
one knew
tracks.
Gudinski heard the tracks.
You know, I think that we've gotten to a place of a band where we're in our best way.
What's wrong, John?
What was it that got you there?
What was it that got you?
Functioning as a unit?
Gudinski hearing the album?
And I do actually think about this one a lot. The Gudinski heard the tracks bit is exactly the kind of bit that my good friends would pull in over-serious high school science classes, disciplinary meetings with unsatisfied teachers, or laboured interactions with tiresome work colleagues that always left me feeling guilty for being a dismissive cunt. But that feeling was easily quenched by just how incredibly hard I would laugh at the mundanity of the situation and how absurd it was that this was what was occupying my precious time. And then I think about how the Red Hot Chili Peppers are a brilliant band, and the result of the stars aligning to group such an interesting quartet of musicians together, resulting in what many think of as total dog shit. But I see the truth. They are truly one of the best pop bands of all time. Then I turn my mind to ruminating on what the late Gudinski was thinking when he first heard the insane stacking of guitars at the end of Turn It Again back in 2006. You cannot convince me that this band doesn't fucking rock dick. Anyway, I posted that video and it got, you know, a little bit of attention, and it certainly got some pushback, and I didn't quite understand why it got that pushback. It turns out I used the term brain dead in that video to refer to Molly Meldrum, and I used that term not knowing that Molly Meldrum suffered a pretty severe brain injury, you know, 10, 15 years ago or something like this. And I didn't know that. And he was left with like a pretty severe brain injury that's dramatically changed his livelihood. So I think I touched a nerve there, and probably someone who was close to Molly saw that video and got really upset and was absolutely laying into me on Instagram. And I was, you know, I had the conversation with them in the DMs trying to get to the bottom of what was going on, and I felt like a real fucking twit when I discovered, like, yeah, he thought I was making fun of a guy for falling off a ladder and like now being incapacitated by a brain injury, which was not the case. Anyway, so I learned a valuable lesson there. Not sure what it was. I guess to research literally everything in the whole world before you make a video for your stupid social media account. Maybe not though. But I guess I did issue an apology. Issued an apology, like I'm fucking some important guy that has to issue apologies. I made another video to apologize for it because I felt pretty bad about it, and I guess I don't still feel bad about it because time has passed, and I know that it was an honest like misuse of language that I didn't understand at the time the gravity of, right? But I guess just to really hit it home, I apologize for using that language, not understanding that it was language that could be really upsetting to someone close, or even not even close, just someone who loves Molly Meldrum, or anyone who knows someone who's suffered such a brain injury and is now living an impaired life because of it. That's not funny. It's not funny to make fun of someone for having hit their head. And I feel like people who listen to this podcast know me well enough to know that that's not the kind of laugh I would try and get, because I don't myself find it funny, interesting, or clever. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it for this week, month, or fortnight, or whatever it may be. And I will try to get back to the podcast soon. I'm really pleased to have had you here with me, to join me, sort of going through some of my thoughts from the past month or two. And stick around. I do have one final question for you. If you've made it this far into the podcast, you can reach out to me on my Instagram or my TikTok, and all you need to do is just send me a message if this interests you, because I'm constantly thinking about stuff like this. Would you support a Patreon like model where you pay a small amount per month to get access to full podcasts like this one, or hopefully more like the one I had planned with an actual guest, Peter Hook? Just send me a message on one of my social media platforms saying yes, I would, and I'll get the message. Just interested, a little bit of market research there to see whether it's something I should jump into, or maybe I need to wait a little longer. All right, take care. I hope you have an awesome life. See ya. Bye.